Hi, and welcome back to the Remnant YouTube channel. If you would please like this video and subscribe to the channel, we surely would appreciate it. Today, I want to talk about anxiety and working with people who have anxiety. A lot of people hope anxiety will go away because of one big moment, one insight, one prayer, one realization that finally fixes it. That hasn't been my experience. What I've seen in myself and in the people that I teach or the people that I work with is that anxiety usually loosens slowly, almost quietly, as life starts to get reordered around something stronger than fear. And people tend to expect that it's going to be one big moment. It's not because we beat anxiety, but because it no longer gets to run everything. One of the first shifts I see happening is when people start to understand how much the past is still showing up in the present. The most anxious people aren't weak and they're not failing spiritually. They're vigilant. At some point, their nervous system learned that the world wasn't predictable, safe, or forgiving, so it adapted. It stayed alert. It stayed in fight or flight. Therapy helps put language to that. It helps separate what used to be dangerous from what is just stressful. Before that, anxiety feels random, overwhelming, like it comes out of nowhere. After that, it starts to make sense. And once it makes sense, it usually loses a bit of its grip. Another thing that helps is actually working through the past instead of trying to think our way around it. Insight matters, but it's rarely enough on its own. You can understand why you're anxious and still feel anxious. Talking things through, grieving what's lost, going back to places you learn to brace yourself, that's often what allows your body to catch up with what the mind already knows, that the danger isn't here anymore. Trauma-informed therapy and sometimes medication creates enough steadiness for that to happen. That isn't a failure of faith, it's care, it's stewardship. Another way anxiety loosens is through actually pursuing God, not just ideas about God, because anxiety tends to grow where trust has worn thin. For a lot of us, prayer is still there, scripture is still there, but intimacy has faded. We know the language, we just don't rest anymore. Spiritual disciplines don't make anxiety easier, at least not quickly. But silence, small, imperfect fasting, contemplative prayer, those things slowly shift our attention away from control and back towards presence. They train us to stay rather than react. Anxiety also loses strength when the pace of life slows down. Everything feels immediate, everything feels high stakes. Slowing down, especially in ways you can optimize, usually feels uncomfortable at first, sometimes really painful, and sometimes even threatening. But over time, it settles the system. Peace doesn't come from managing life better, it comes from actually inhabiting it. Anxiety also eases as our capacity for joy grows. Practices like Emmanuel journaling help retrain attention toward goodness that anxiety taught us to overlook. Anxiety narrows everything toward threat. Joy widens the field. It brings safety and connection back into view. That doesn't mean ignoring pain, it means letting goodness be real again. Physical practices matter more than most of us want to admit. Sleep, movement, drinking water, being outside, exercise, these lower anxiety in ways insight never will. They aren't separate from spiritual formation, they make it possible. When the body is constantly depleted, trust becomes very hard. Caring for the body isn't indulgence, it's honesty about our limits. Another thing that weakens anxiety is reducing distraction. Constant noise fragments attention. It keeps the nervous system restless. Leaving your phone behind, especially outside, often makes anxiety spike at first, but eventually it becomes clear how much anxiety was being fed by stimulation, not danger. Silence is uncomfortable, but it regulates more than we expect. Anxiety also softens in the presence of community. Isolation convicts us that our fears are too much or too strange. Shared rhythms, eating, worshiping, resting, praying together, a sense of belonging. Healing doesn't come from being fixed, it comes from being known. And finally, anxiety becomes more manageable when we stop treating it as failure. I still skip disciplines sometimes. I still move way too fast, and anxiety shows up under stress. But I don't take that as evidence that something is wrong with me anymore. Now it feels like a signal, a reminder to return, to slow down, to reground myself in God's presence and in reality. Anxiety doesn't fade because we conquer it. It fades as our lives are reordered around trust, limits, and love. Therapy helps steady the system. Spiritual practices reshape it. Community sustains it. None of these work well on their own, but together they form a life anxiety can't dominate. If you're waiting for anxiety to disappear completely, you may wait a long time. But if you're willing to live differently, slowly, honestly, relationally, you may find anxiety no longer defines you. It becomes something you carry lightly instead of something that carries you.